What's going on, guys? Mr. Collins here, bringing you another episode of the podcast, Let's Talk History. So today, I'm joined again with Mr. Loveless.
How you doing, guys?
And to celebrate Women's History Month, we decided to compile a list. Each of us have our own list. Just like the last episode, we don't know each other's list. So things could get a little spicy. And we just have a list, not really a ranking, just talking about some famous women in history. It's quite possible our lists may kind of intertwine a little bit, may have some of the same people on our lists, but either way, I think we should just jump right into it. So I'll let Loveless go first. So what you got?
All right. So my first one, me being in aviation side of the Navy, has to be Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart.
I concur, because she is also on my list.
There we go. Hey.
So what do we know about old Amelia here?
Amelia, she was from Kansas, and what she did that stood out was in the time, I would say early 1900s. She was born in 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s. Aviation was male dominant.
Yeah.
Women didn't fly. They stayed home, cooked, cleaned, took care of the babies. That was what they're known for.
Yeah.
They weren't known for flying. But she stood out. I mean, she's in the National Women's Hall of Fame, National Aviation Hall of Fame. She was the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean solo.
Yeah.
She promoted women in aviation and commercial aviation, women pilots. So any woman that's a pilot can thank Amelia Earhart.
100%.
Yeah.
She's a household name.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, anytime you're talking about the history of aviation, she comes up. And I think we're teetering towards that. I think we are getting towards that episode where we're going to have to do an aviation episode.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have to.
I mean, we've been talking about it here and there, on and off camera, so I think it's going to happen. But I 100% agree that on a list of awesome women in history, Amelia Earhart has to be there. And of course, you can't leave out the mystery behind what happened to her.
Yeah, where'd she go, man?
So the whole Bermuda Triangle, theories and everything, we left our tinfoil hats at home, so we won't get into all that. But just a super awesome person, and we may never know what happened to her. It may be just lost to the ocean. Who knows? So I'll keep the ball rolling, and I'll go ahead and give my next one here. I put down Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh, man, that's a good one.
So what do you think of that?
I didn't have it. That was a good one.
So when I first thought of the idea of famous women in history, my mind immediately went presidential. So I started thinking about some pretty awesome first ladies in history. So Eleanor Roosevelt was the wife of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and she was a very prominent, very intelligent woman. She was an activist, and she was arguably probably the first lady to really set the standard for what a first lady is in office. So previous to Eleanor Roosevelt, you didn't hear much about the first ladies. Their jobs in the White House was to coordinate parties, like you said earlier in the beginning of the podcast, really just taking care of the house. Eleanor Roosevelt comes along and she kind of changes that standard. So following World War II, following the death of her husband, FDR, she actually became a human rights activist. And she spoke out about some of the atrocities that happened during the war. Elephant in the room, the Holocaust, things like that. So she had a huge support for refugees, education, getting people the shelter and medical expenses that they need just to be humane, I guess you could say. So she has a quote, a pretty famous quote. Well-behaved women seldomly make history, or something like that. I might have butchered it, but totally awesome woman. Totally deserves to be on the list when you're talking about awesome women. So, you got anything you want to add to that, or?
I see a lot of her quotes in movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do see a lot of her inspirational quotes in movies.
She is very quotable. Her and FDR had more of a platonic relationship. I don't want to say the love wasn't there, but FDR, like JFK and like many other presidents, he was a ladies' man. Right. He actually got caught receiving letters from some of the White House staff and other people outside the White House, females, and he got caught writing letters back to them as well. Not just caught by his staff, but
and
caught
in the
by
cookie jar.
And in the cookie jar, caught by his wife.
Oh, goodness.
So they really stayed together more for political reasons. And
Yeah.
after he died, she kind of carried the torch of the political side of the Roosevelt family. So I'll go ahead and let you give your next one.
All right. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Hidden Figures.
Oh, I love that movie.
All right. So I have to say, Katherine Johnson or Catherine Goebel is probably hands down one of my favorite people in that movie.
Yeah.
And just for the point of, I'm into NASA and a lot of that stuff. So you take not only a woman, but an African American in this time
Yeah.
was not allowed
Yeah.
to be anywhere near any type of calculations or anything where they were seen.
Yeah.
Wasn't allowed to publish papers.
Yep.
They weren't allowed to do anything. Even though they were doing it all, she wasn't allowed to have her name on it or be seen.
Yeah. She wasn't getting respect.
And it came down to point blank, we need these figures. This computer we got ain't working. Who can we get to do it? They gave it to her. Somebody just found her and knew she could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Gave her some figures and she'd pop them off faster than any of the men in that room.
Yeah.
And ended up that, she worked at NASA for 33 years. 33 years.
I didn't know that.
She was the first African-American woman to work as a NASA scientist.
Wow.
I mean,
Just a
that
high
was just
honor.
like it's like, and you have to think, I mean, the movie probably gives you a good insight, but nobody would know what it's like to be persecuted and put down that much. I couldn't imagine. And, but she persevered and knew what she wanted and got the recognition she deserved finally.
100%. And you bring her up, I feel like she's almost double dipping. Not only is she a astute member of Women's History Month, but also, just African American history, people of color, just standing out in her field, NASA, and just a super amazing movie. If you have never seen Hidden Figures, it is a great movie. I remember one clip that stuck with me from that movie is, I think it was raining, and the building that she worked in, there was no colored bathrooms. So every time she had to go to the bathroom, she had to walk, what was it, like 15 minutes just to?
Yeah, it was over a mile away.
Yeah. And she walked back, and she often got in trouble for being late and going to the bathroom so often or being gone for so long, but you can't blame her because, it's a terrible situation. And on my list as well, I do have a civil rights character on here that I will bring up, but we'll get to her. My next one I had was Amelia Earhart, and Loveless already stole that one from me.
Sorry.
Great minds think alike, I guess. So I'll move on to Anne Frank.
Okay, Anne Frank's a good one.
So Anne Frank, child during the Holocaust. So one of the, if not the greatest atrocity to ever happen in history was the Holocaust. Holocaust was these camps set up by Nazi sympathizers and Nazis, sanctioned by Hitler himself, and these were death camps. These were places people were sent to die, essentially. And in this part of history, all the Jews of Germany got sent to ghettos where they were supposed to live. Well, when it came time for her part of the ghetto to get moved to the death camp, her and her family hid in the basement. And while she was up there, she wrote in her diary, famously the Diary of Anne Frank, about all the terrible things she heard and saw in her life just growing up as a Jew. And a little fun fact about her, she was actually born the same year as Martin Luther King Jr.
Well, that's kind of neat.
So had she lived as long as he did, they would have been the same age. So pretty interesting there. Sad story, what happened to Anne Frank and her family, but that's part of history. I tell my kids all the time in class, history is sad stories, and it's learning from those sad stories and trying to make the future better for everybody. You don't really think of history people as time, travelers or people who can see the future, but, history repeats itself. So it's really important to look at these people, these famous women, just bad things that's happened in the world. So I did want to end there with Anne Frank on mine. So I got a couple more here, so I'll go ahead and let you, unless you got something you want to add.
No. I mean, Anne Frank, she's just and you got to think about the young age she was at.
Yeah.
When she was going through all this, that'd be hard.
It's a terrible story.
Hard. The next one I got, me being a computer scientist and doing programming and stuff, would have to be another girl or woman from Hidden Figures.
Okay.
Can you guess who it was?
I can't remember the cast. I can't remember the historical people era exactly, so hit me with it.
Dorothy Vaughan.
Okay.
Dorothy Vaughan.
The name comes to mind.
She actually ended up being, I think Dorothy Vaughan was the first black supervisor at NASA. But basically, I mean, and the movie shows it pretty good, but basically it come down to, all these people were trying to figure out how to program this computer. They got a new IBM computer and nobody knew how to use it and couldn't get it working. So she just would sneak in, basically read the manual and then figured out. She became an expert at 410 programmer, which is what the IBM used.
Yeah.
By just simply going through and teaching herself how to do it.
Yeah.
And then, so she became the first black supervisor, and so she knew that what they were doing, his computer's going to take over. Once they figure out how to use it, it's going to take over. So she made sure that she figured out how to use it, and then taught the girls that worked for her how to use it, so they could have jobs.
And back then, computers were the size of this room.
Oh yeah, but bigger. I mean, they were huge, and it's super slow. I mean, you got to think. I mean, you didn't sit down with a key card. You had to punch these cards out by hand, stick them in, program them, change the real tapes. The memory wasn't on a little internal hard drive. No, it was this big film-looking reel that went back and forth, and you had to change it out when it filled up. And it was crazy because I mean, you got to think. I mean, they didn't go by gigabytes. They probably didn't even go by megabytes. They probably went by bytes.
Kilobytes or something. Just bytes.
Just a few. Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was. She got the head title, and it was rare for that.
Yeah.
And then she led a whole team, so she was the supervisor, and basically it came down to, okay, we're going to listen to this African American woman, and these men steps aside and like, okay, she knows what we're doing, we got to get her in here.
Yeah.
Just proving their worth.
Yeah. I think that's an awesome story. And again, going back to Hidden Figures, if you have not watched it,
it's phenomenal movie.
Highly recommend that movie. Awesome movie. So I got a quiz for you.
Okay.
I'm going to describe somebody from history, and I want you to tell me the first person that comes to your mind. So you have a woman who is African American, and she rides public transit, and she's told to go to the back of the bus. And she famously stands up against that and gets in trouble for it. So who am I talking about?
Rosa Parks.
It is Rosa Parks, but what if I told you there was somebody that did it before Rosa Parks?
Let's hear it.
Claudette Colvin.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So Claudette Colvin, she's a young girl, and just like the story of Rosa Parks, she gets told to go to the back of the bus. Every African American did. It was protocol in most cities that if you were of color, you had to ride the back of the bus. Regardless of how many people were on the bus, that's just how it worked. Well, Claudette Colvin says, I ain't doing it. And she actually stands up to the people on the bus and sits in the front. Way before, it was a year or two before Rosa Parks did it. So you may be asking now, well, why did she not get the recognition and Rosa Parks did? When she got arrested, when Claudette Colvin got arrested, she got accused of fighting back with the police and, things that most likely did not happen. And on top of that, she was pregnant out of wedlock. So the civil rights activists did not think she was really a good candidate to make kind of the face of civil rights. Yeah. So because of that, she didn't get the face like Rosa Parks did. But a little while later, I can't remember the timeline exactly, but a little while later, Rosa Parks does the same exact thing, and the NAACP steps in and takes over, and this is kind of a double whammy here. Claudette Colvin and Rosa Parks. Just two awesome women in history. Women that did pretty awesome things, stood up for what they believed in. There's actually a book written about her, kind of a biography. It's called Twice Towards Justice. And I believe she is actually still living today. I mean, when this video comes out, she is still alive, telling her story. So, and that's what people don't realize about women's history and civil rights itself. People tend to think, kids tend to think, even adults tend to think, this happened 500 years ago. There are people still alive today that witnessed these atrocities and had to live through it. And I just think it's awesome as a historian to be able to hear their story firsthand.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. And this is the thing, with Rosa Parks. Even the I can't think of her name now.
Claudette Colvin?
Yeah. Even with her, in today's society, they see injustice, something being done wrong to them. And in today's society, like, how many times would you punish the kids or somebody for doing something or standing up for what they believed in was wrong?
Yeah.
And it was the same way then.
Yeah.
So a lot of people thought them, disrespectful, rebellious. Well, they had to be.
Yeah.
If they were getting treated unfairly and unjust.
Just imagine how the world would be if they didn't stand up and go against the rules. Because the rules were wrong. They were injustice.
They were wrong. Yeah, they were unjust. I agree. Yeah,
100%. Sure. Dolly Parton.
Oh yeah, Dolly Parton. She's a phenomenal woman.
Absolutely. I love her music, her acting.
Oh yeah, she does a ton of stuff for the community.
Yeah,
done a ton of stuff.
100%. So, you got anything else you want to add with the podcast?
No, I think we need to do an episode eventually on Native American women and how they changed history.
I think that would be awesome.
We need
Pocahontas, Sacagawea, just all kinds of people that come into mind, just you saying it right there. So, I 100% concur, and I think if that's it, then I appreciate you guys watching. Again, it is always a pleasure having Loveless on the podcast. Definitely going to have him many more times in the future. Get some more people in. We've been kind of planning some episodes ahead.
We've got one coming up. We might have to have about 4 or 5 people to join in on this.
Yeah.
Might be a long episode on that one, though.
It might be, but I'm here for it, man.
Oh, yeah. We'll do it.
I'm always ready to talk some history. So, as always, guys, we appreciate you checking out the podcast. Please remember to share it, like it, subscribe it, get the word out, let the people learn a few things in here. And as always, keep learning history.